thinking about Tampa real estate? Well, what if everything you think you know is actually wrong? Today I'm going to be debunking 4 myths about Tampa real estate. So let's get started. Myth number 1: Tampa's housing market is always a seller's paradise. Yeah, this is definitely not true, and we can see that very much so right now when we see so many houses sitting for months. So many beautiful homes that have nothing really wrong with them, but they're just sitting. For example, this house here is so beautiful, has a lot of space, and it's been a price cut uh 3 times, looks like, and it still hasn't sold. Now, of course, I haven't gone digging deep into this to see if there's anything wrong with the home, but a lot of houses, there's nothing wrong with them, and they're just sitting. So, yeah, definitely Tampa is not always a seller's paradise. Sometimes the market is just slow, and that is the norm. The market goes up and down all the time. We can actually look at this chart here and see over the past 10 years what the Tampa real estate market has looked at for residential real estate. And you see all throughout highs and lows, and it just fluctuates all the time, just like anywhere else. Myth number 2: you need to be a millionaire to live in Tampa. Okay, I know you guys don't actually think you need to be a millionaire to live in Tampa, but I think that the mindset is sometimes that you have to be making some high amount of income to get a house here, and that is definitely not true. There are a lot of more affordable options here, a wide range of prices. You can find a really nice home in the 300,000s and even in the 200,000s if you're looking in the right area around Tampa. You might be able to find a small house that's in the 200,000s and it's still a fairly nice home. Actually, why don't I just show you? I'm going to show you some homes in Tampa that are 400K or less, and they're 2 to 4 bedrooms that look really nice. So here's some of those options for you. Yeah, so you don't have to be making crazy high income to live here or to get a house here. There's a lot of down payment assistance programs as well. So that is something to think about. If you are thinking about getting a home, looking into that, maybe talking to an MLO. I know one, a good one, if you want that info as well. I'm a realtor with Space Team LPT Realty, so okay, guys, we're halfway through the video. Before I get into myth number 3, I just want to ask you guys, if you're enjoying this video so far, if you wouldn't mind giving it a like and consider subscribing to my channel. Now, let's get back into it. Myth number 3 is that new constructions are always the best. Now, I love new constructions. I'm a huge proponent for them, especially right now when the market is slow and builders are giving a lot of closing incentives. But does that mean it's always the best? Maybe not. I mean, let's look at it. Okay. So advantages of having a new construction. Of course, it's new, so you're not going to have immediate repairs. And generally, the builders give warranties on the appliances and just on the structure as a whole. Because if there's issues that they didn't notice, and then they just show up after a year, that's not really fair to you because it's not your fault. So they'll generally cover like small repairs within about the first year or so. They might have different timelines, but I know Polte is they have a year. Another thing is that new constructions are generally very energy efficient, whereas older homes might not always be. And again, I was talking earlier about builders incentives. So because builders have their own loan system, their own like loan program, They will generally be able to offer really good incentives, especially during like a time like this where we're in a buyer's market. They'll generally be able to offer a lot of coverage on closing costs and like buy down your interest rate and things like that. Some disadvantages, well, first of all, it's kind of an advantage, but also a disadvantage. So for new constructions, you'll walk into the model home and it's so beautiful. A lot of times it has these tray ceilings, has these accent walls, the most beautiful finishes, and you're just like, wow, this is amazing. I want this house so bad. And then you realize to get a house that looks like that, it's not gonna cost what it looks like it would cost. So, like, if they have that model listed at a certain price, that price is not what that model is priced at. So, if you were to buy that model with all the finishes and things it has, it would be a lot more than, what that straight price was that you saw. Yeah, it's really nice that you can customize your home like that and you can get things like tray ceilings and accent walls and pretty finishes and all sorts of different things, right? And a lot of these different by a lot of these different builders, but it's going to cost you more. Whereas with a resale, if you wanted that kind of work done, you probably would spend less if you just hired somebody to do it yourself. And honestly, you can do that with the new construction too. You can just be like, yeah, I'm going to wait on that and have somebody else do it or do it yourself. But some people, when they move in, they just want it to be that way. So then they will get it customized ahead of time. So it's a pro and a con. If you want that done so that you don't have to think about it anymore, and so you don't have to move your furniture around to get it done, more power to you. That's great. If you have the money to do that. But, that is something to think about when you walk into those model homes. Don't be thinking that that's what your home's going to look like at that base price, because it's not. It's not going to look like that. Also, with new constructions, they tend to be more cookie cutter generally, and the ones that are not are generally the more higher priced ones, right? Also, they come in smaller lots generally, or like I was talking about with all the added costs and whatnot. If you want a bigger yard, you're gonna have to pay a hefty lot premium. Okay, so sometimes it can be anywhere from like 5K to 50K, maybe even 100K in some instances if it's like super big and from certain builders. But yeah, so if you want a big yard, you might be paying a big price if you're going new construction. But with resale, generally, you could probably find the yard size that you want for less. Like the house will be less than new construction. Also, new constructions can sometimes be far from the major cities, but if it's an area that's being developed, it's also a pro because that means that your home will appreciate a lot over the next like decade. So it's a con now, but it could be a pro later, depending on where you're buying. With a resale home, it could be beneficial if you want a larger yard because you're gonna more easily find a larger lot, and there's oftentimes mature trees, and so that's something to think about. A lot of times it's easier to find resale homes that are right in the middle of all the action of the city. So if you don't want to be far from the major city, that is a good thing about resale. Resales also move in ready, whereas sometimes new constructions you might have to wait for the particular model that you're looking at, or maybe the particular model that you're looking at with the size lot you want and whatnot. Of course, with resales, you're going to have more maintenance that has to be done. Although with the new construction, you are going to still have maintenance. It just might not be as soon, but you're going to have the routine maintenance, of course. And then also with a resale, you might not know all the history of the property. So there could be damages that, are not even visible in the inspection. Sometimes things come up unexpectedly. Wardrobe change. Just kidding. I am not just changing for fun. I wish that was the case. I actually had some technical difficulties with the video, and this last portion I'm having to redo on a different day. So, yeah. But let's just get into myth number 4 again for me, but first time for you guys. But yeah, so real estate number ugh. Myth number 4 is that real estate will always outperform stocks in Tampa. Everybody says that real estate is the safest way to get rich, right? But in Tampa, is that always the case? I mean, especially when you compare it to stocks. So let's look at the numbers and kind of see what the difference is in profits of stocks versus real estate and how the money grows. So, real estate is an asset and it has lots of unique costs. It has, you have to think about the taxes, you got to think about insurance, maintenance, utilities. There's costs like, oh, the HOA sometimes, depending on where your property is. Yeah, there's lots of costs with having real estate. And also, you can't liquidate real estate whenever you want. So, depending on the market, it might take you a long time to sell. Earlier, we were talking about how houses are sitting on the market for months, sometimes, even if there's nothing wrong with them. So, that could happen if you want to liquidate your funds, but you have to wait for selling the home. It's going to take you some time. Whereas with stocks, you can liquidate what you put in whenever you would like. Okay, so this is a chart comparing the yields from stocks versus an investment property that you rent out. The chart uses data from S&P 500 stock indexes and Case-Shiller home price index data and estimated costs of maintenance, taxes, and insurance. Oh, and also the reason the real estate chart starts at 0 is because this is not liquid cash anymore once it's put into the home, right? You don't just have access to that. It's not compounded the same way that your money in the stock market is, right? You can clearly see that the slope of gain is steeper on the stock side, meaning that the money is growing faster on that side versus on the real estate side. So regardless of if you're renting it out or not, let's just think about the growth of value in residential property in general, and that is generally around 4%. Of course, it might fluctuate a little bit each year, but it's generally around 4%. Now, for stocks, for S&P 500 stocks, it generally will grow about 10% annually. Now, that's over a period of 10 years. So, meaning the average growth over a period of 10 years is 10% per year. So, 10% per year, it would have grown when you do the math of what the average of each year's growth was. Not necessarily meaning that every year it was exactly 10%, but meaning that if you average out the amount that it grew each year, it was 10% annually, if that makes sense. So that's a lot more. That's 6% more than the average residential amount of growth. So that's a big difference. And now I'm not saying that you shouldn't invest in real estate and that there aren't perks to it. I'm going to go over the perks of investing in real estate versus the perks of investing in stocks. So, first of all, with real estate, you can use the leverage of other people's money. And when I say this, I mean you can get a mortgage, right? You don't have to pay for a home all up front. And sometimes you can not even have any down payment, depending on if you're a veteran or not. You might just be able to have 0% down, and maybe you want to invest in you want to invest your money into something else or save it for something else at that time, and you can do that and still have your home. Also, real estate is a tangible asset, and this means that you can have control over it more. You can improve it how you want to. You can update it. You can live in it, or you can rent it out. You can use it as like an Airbnb business. So yeah, there's those perks to having real estate, and that's a cash flow opportunity. Also, there are tax advantages to having real estate. You can get a deductible for mortgage interest. property taxes, insurance, repairs, and depreciation. And then also, if this is the house that you live in, you can get homestead tax exemption, which doesn't mean that you don't have to pay any property taxes, of course. It just lessens the amount that you have to pay. And if you don't live in Florida and you didn't know that we had that here, yeah, that's a thing here. There's something called a 1031 exchange that lets you defer capital gains when selling and reinvesting. There's a lot of timeline guidelines to this. So like you have to buy and sell the properties within a certain period of time to be able to defer the capital gains. But it's pretty much like you sell something and then use that money to buy something else. And if you do it within a certain period of time and you file for this 1031 exchange, you don't have to pay capital gains tax. With real estate, you have an inflation hedge, meaning that the property value and your rent, if you're renting it out, is going to rise with inflation. Some perks of having stocks are, first of all, the liquidity of it. So I was talking about how with real estate, you can't always you can never just like this get your money, right? Like you have to go through some sort of process. It's not going to sell instantly. And even if you sell it quickly, it's still going to take a little bit of time. Whereas with stocks, you can liquidate your funds when you would like to. Also, stocks can be invested into at a very low entry cost, whereas real estate, you generally do have to have a good amount of money. Not always. I mean, like I was saying before, there are some people who can even get a home with no money down. So yeah, I mean, there are opportunities for a very low investment cost with real estate, but not everybody is going to have that opportunity. But for stocks, more people might have the opportunity to start investing at a very low cost. Also, with stocks, you can diversify quickly, and that adds some safety. So, like for S&P 500, obviously, that's 500 companies that you're owning shares in with one purchase. With stocks, you don't have management headaches. Like if somebody, like nobody's going to be calling you like the toilet is broken or they need a new AC or something like that. If you're renting it out, or even if it's your own home, you don't have to. With stocks, you're not going to be worrying about repairs, right? So that is something that is really good about stocks, is that there's no maintenance repairs to worry about. And again, with stocks, it historically has high returns. Now, of course, this is over a long period of time. Sometimes you might get some good profits over short periods of time, some decent profits, but generally you want to wait a long time, like a number of years before really gaining something. And even with real estate, if you want to ensure equity, you should wait some years before selling, unless you're maybe doing like a flip, because that's a little different because you added value to the home by improving it. But if you're just buying a home and then reselling, you're probably going to want to wait a few years before selling it so that you can gain some equity, because otherwise you are not really as sure to have equity in the home. So I would say the best thing you can do is probably invest in both if possible. And I don't say this from a place of not having done it with my own money. I think investing in stocks and real estate is important, and that if you can do both, go for it. And also do your own research, as I'm not a financial advisor, guys, but I'm just trying to help with the knowledge that I have and with the experiences that I've had in the past, and just provide you guys with the information so you can be educated and keep on educating yourself and making good decisions that are going to benefit your finances and your goals. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I enjoyed making it, and I hope that it was helpful for you guys, that it brought a new perspective on Tampa for you guys, and also maybe educated you a little bit. And I hope that it's very beneficial for you. If you did like this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing to my channel for more information about Tampa, about Wesley Chapel, real estate, and fun things to do in the area. My name is Elizabeth Joy, and this is Joy in Wesley Chapel. Hope you guys have a good weekend. Bye.